What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Disability Rights and Collegiate Athletic Band panel of 2023. My name is Colin Wilfred. My pronouns are he, they. I identify as autistic, and I am a sousaphone player for the University of Oregon Marching Band. As for my image description, I'm wearing space gray AirPods Max with some calendars to my left and a flag with the Oregon logo to my right, and a concrete ceiling with a fan above. Joining me are Bryce and Sarah. Do you guys want to state your name, pronouns, disability, role in your college band, and image description?
I can go. So my name is Bryce Reza. I use they them pronouns. I go to the University of Oregon with Colin. And I'm in a practice room at the School of Music, which is quite fitting. So there's a piano behind me and then just soundproof walls, hopefully soundproof walls. I'm wearing a brown shirt. It's like a tannish brown shirt. I think that's all of image description, right? The irony. Oh, I also identify as I have oculocutaneous albinism, so like I'm visually impaired, but I also have a couple other disabilities. So I have a like hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and then a few heart conditions that kind of go with HEDS.
Okay, and Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I use she, her pronouns. I am a alto saxophone player at UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina, and I am a full-time wheelchair user. I also have HEDS. I also have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Image description: I am in a white background room, purple shirt, and red hair.
Okay. Marching band is a legitimate passion that myself, Bryce, and Sarah all share. We love performing pregame and halftime shows in front of thousands of football fans. Next year is especially going to be exciting for all of us, since Oregon football's Bo Nix and North Carolina football's Drake May are both 2023 Heisman Trophy contenders. But unfortunately, since we all identify as disabled, we have often faced, and will likely sadly continue to face, ableism throughout our lives. And our stories both before and during our lives in Division I marching bands are no exception. All three of us are eager to teach you, the viewers of this panel, important lessons that we believe all directors and student leaders of scholastic and collegiate marching and pep bands should learn to be welcoming and inclusive towards members with physical and intellectual disabilities. That's why we are gathered here for this panel. So, without further ado, let's begin. In this portion, Bryce, Sarah, and myself talked about how our disabilities tied into our marching band experiences, both in grade school and college. So, anyone want to start?
I can.
Okay.
So again, my name is Bryce. I am a first-year master's student at the University of Oregon. I did my undergrad in oboe performance, and didn't join marching band until my senior year of college because of some health issues that I was having. In high school, our band program was run very close to the like quote unquote dictatorship style program where there was you either were able enough to do it and you did it, or you didn't do marching band. But then there was also requirements that you had to do marching band to do other ensembles. So I did it and just made the best of it. But it was a lot of mornings of why are you late, when it was like I had a heart condition that wasn't yet diagnosed because I was a later in life diagnosis for the things that aren't my visual impairment. A lot of unfortunate circumstances that happened that deterred me from doing college marching band when I got here. But learning how to march visually impaired, I have my vision is very odd. I have photophobia, so I go from seeing some things, granted that be always legally blind, to seeing nothing in certain light situations. And so I had to learn how to just memorize feeling and how to memorize that I'm bright-eyed dominant. So I have to shift everything to the left a little bit because I'm going to always be leaning too far right. And so there's some gaps that I had to learn just on my own. But when I got to college, I said I didn't want to face all that. And then I developed a couple more serious heart conditions and things going on. And there was a scary time in 2020 where the advice of my doctors was, if you don't figure it out and find a better health plan, you should start figuring out what you want to do for the rest of the time. And so there were some pretty serious conversations that we're having at that time. And as my health started to improve, I said, okay, I'm going to be really retaliant of what's happening with my health and just suck it up and figure it out. And I contacted Dr. Wiltshire, the band director at the University of Oregon, and said, hey, I want to do this. How can I do it? And he gave me a phone call. And we actually had some pretty good conversations of, I'm just going to trust that you know what you're doing because we want you there, even if that looks a little different. And I said, okay. And so I marched tenor saxophone because it was the one that I knew that my body could hold the best because of the weight on my body instead of my hands, because my hand is the most, my fingers are starting to fully be just not able to go back into place. And so the thought of carrying things was pretty scary at the time, especially because I was dropping things frequently because of the dislocations in my hand, that something a neck strap was helping. And there was a lot of days that I had to sit out, and there was never any question with it with marching band. And I think that's the environment that the University of Oregon is trying to make and is getting better. But that actually made me go, I wanted to go into education coming into college, but I, again, was deterred from doing that because visually impaired people can't be teachers is what I felt and thought, which is not true because now I'm getting a master's in music education. And this will be my third season in OMB, and I will actually be the drum major, one of 4 for next year, which is really exciting.
Congrats.
But thank you. And that's something that I think is a culture that I've worked to really help push forward at UO. I had a guide dog for my first year, and he unfortunately got cancer and didn't make it to our second season and is not participating in my third. And so he was a big thing too, of just the sort of understanding. And when I had him, I was discussing what the plans were with Dr. Wiltshire, and he said, well, we actually had a dog who was an assistant to somebody who had diabetes, like he was an alert dog. And this is just kind of what she did. And you could try these things out, and we're happy to work with you. But there was that welcoming door that was available to me that I kind of just took and went, whew, like zoomed past and tried to make more doors open for more people. And so I'm hoping that with the position that I have next year will be something for a lot of students to take and use to be like, no, this is a place that we can be in, because it frequently is a place that is not welcoming specifically or especially for people with visual and hearing impairments of all kinds of varieties. That music can be somewhat exclusive to those, which is not, should never be the case, because there are ways to make things adaptive and to make things happen. And so especially with marching, that I dealt a lot with having to have somebody around me dut for me all the time, and have just like designated people that I would say, hey, I'm not going to see the drum majors. Can you dut to what the start of the show will be? And we all just kind of figured it out. And so I'm excited to see what that will look like on the other end of being a drum major. And I think the plan for next fall is to have someone tap on the ladder, because I won't be able to see hands or see feet. And so having somebody tap on the ladder so I could feel the vibrations through the ladder, and then to get into a conducting pattern and some sort of like highlight that will go in gloves. So hopefully I could see some sort of reflection that way, because I still have all my color, but that is also pending that the lighting is correct. So sort of building that repertoire of vibrations and other tactile things. But marching band 100% could be an adaptive activity, and there's nothing to say that it shouldn't be. And so I'm hoping that what I can bring next year will help keep this narrative moving.
Sarah, do you want to go next?
Yes, I can. For me, high school and college have been completely different experiences in marching band, because I marched perfectly able-bodied my freshman and sophomore year of high school. And then I started having health issues. And so I did not march my junior year because my band director pretty much said, you know, you're not gonna be able to come in here and march. And then that also meant I couldn't play concert band in the spring, which was really upsetting. And so when I went back my senior year, I'm like, is there anything we can do? And he's like, well, we'll put you in the pit. And so I played in the front ensemble for that year, just so that way I would be able to do concert band in the spring. But there were a lot of different problems with him. Like he used my health and whatnot to be an excuse to like not let me have a solo and to not let me sit first chair because he was calling me unreliable, which was very awful. So when I did get to college, I was planning on marching my freshman year and then COVID. So none of us got to march because of COVID. And then I became a full-time wheelchair user during part of that year. And my roommate kept getting onto me in my ear, telling me, you know, what's the worst that can happen if you email this band director? I mean, like, he can just say no. And so I emailed our director at UNC and I was like, hey, I really loved marching band. It was a huge thing that I loved. Is there anything we can do? And I was fully expecting to like sit on the sideline and play. But he's like, you know, I want you to come down to my office and we'll sit and we'll have a meeting. And we talked for like an hour and a half that day. Because he's like, no, if we can get you on the field, we're gonna have you on the field just like anybody else, because there's no reason for you not to be if we can make it work. And he said he actually already had somebody in mind to push me, who we dubbed her my legs. She was my legs. She was like my second half this year. She's also going to be drum major for UNC next year, so we'll be training a new pair of legs, which will be fun and interesting over band camp. But the fact that just going to this band director and being like, hey, can I participate at all? And he's like, well, we're going to get you to participate in full, was amazing. And it showed to me how it's not a problem in marching band itself. It's a problem with separate directors and a problem with just people's viewpoints of what people with any kind of disability can and can't do. We had a blind person in the early 2000s who was fully in marching band and had a guide, and he was telling me about her, and they got to march in the inauguration parade for, I think it was one of the Bushes. I guess Bush Jr. was the second one. And just knowing that I'm going to a place where musically we're trying to make collegiate marching band a more accessible place, and seeing how like there's all these people that have reached out and online that have been like, hey, you know, I did not know that we could do this and this is awesome. And I've had sitting up in the handicap seating behind the band playing in pep band, like parents with their kids who are also sitting in the section that are wheelchair users, you know, be like, can we come meet you and say hi? And I'm like, of course. And their kids are always excited and they're like, look, you know, they're don't just go to school here, but they do everything else that everybody else does, and they get to go out on the field, and you can still do anything too. And I just feel like it's been such an amazing experience to have, and I am very excited for a wonderful senior season.
You are doing this fundraiser thing to help both you and one of your friends get some new mobility aids. Do you want to explain more?
Yes. So one of my friends, Lauda, she actually reached out when I started having issues with my chair because it was damaged, unfortunately, by the airlines for that bowl game, to fly out to the bowl game and back. And it was a chartered flight, which apparently makes like the lines of who's responsible really, really blurry.
I want to point out to everyone, the viewers, that because Oregon and North Carolina played each other at the Holiday Bowl in San Diego, Bryce, me, and Sarah We're all at the same bowl game. Continue, Sarah.
Yeah, and so because it was a chartered flight, the like Omni Air came back and said, well, actually it was a chartered flight, so we can't pay for damages. And so when I went to my assistant band director, my band director, they reached out to the athletics department because it's pretty much the same thing as if an athlete, like if their football player who went to the bowl game broke their ankle and needed to have that fixed, it's the same thing as me going to support the football team, being in an athletic band and having my wheelchair, my only set of legs, my mobility broken. And the athletic director was like, no, we don't pay for that. It was airline damage. Insurance is not going to want to pay for it because it's airline damage. So Lauda reached out because she's trying to get a new power assist because our campus destroyed hers. And she said, we're starting this fundraiser and I want to put you with me on it so that we can get what we need to continue doing things, so I can continue to do marching band next fall, and so that she can continue getting around campus and make life a lot easier for the both of us. Because we learned very quickly that there's a lot of differences between like how your chair is going to be set up for regular life and how it's going to be set up on the field. So there's been talks of getting a different chair to try on the field next year. And even potentially like the university band, like our college band, purchasing that different chair. And then once I graduate, donating it off and like putting out on a loaner program to the next disabled student anywhere in the state or the US that wants to join marching band, which would be absolutely amazing to see how that comes about. But we're hoping for good turnout.
Now it's my turn. My band experience began when I was in the 5th grade when I lived in Mercer Island, Washington, which those of you viewers may recognize as the town that holds Mercer Island High School and their 300 plus member marching band, directed by the charismatic Mr. Parker Bixby. My first performance as a 5th grade band member was for this event called All Island Band Night, where all of the bands in the Mercer Island School District, the 5th grade band, combined from all 3 elementary schools, now 4. The bands at Mercer Island's 1 middle school and Mercer Island High School's marching band all performed on the field together. And after the 5th graders and middle schoolers performed, the high school band performed a show, and I was especially amazed by how much fun everyone in the Mercer Island band seemed to have, especially the sousaphone section. In winter break of 2015, which we spent at our home in Mercer Island, my parents tell me and my brother to get off of our devices and into the TV viewing room as they had a presentation about an adventure they had ready for us that we would start taking in 2016, which would be my first year of high school and my brother's first year of middle school. And the adventure turned out to be a move from Seattle to the Bay Area, meaning I was not going to be in the Mercer Island band. And I was sad. The band at the high school I ended up at was good, but it wasn't that big. And from my 10th through 12th grade years, I was the only sousaphone player. My college band experience, I was so excited to be in the Oregon marching band. In 2018, I got to see the Oregon band, and my mom had a habit of looking at other Division I college bands on Facebook to keep up with my interest. And give me ideas of what bands to join when I become college age. And she was able to access the University of Oregon's rehearsal and performance schedule. I was able to see how Dr. Wiltshire taught and how the students around him interacted. So yeah, I decided to learn more about Oregon bands. I toured the University of Oregon, visited the School of Music and Dance, and saw a flyer for the marching band leadership camp that Dr. Wiltshire holds. It was common before COVID. I don't know if it's going to happen again, but before COVID, Dr. Wiltshire did marching band leadership camps every year. And I was in the 2019 iteration. It was at that camp that I decided I wanted to join the Oregon Marching Band.
Let's fast forward to 2021, my first in-person year with the Oregon Marching Band. I joined the Oregon Marching Band's new Safety Advocate Committee to help make the band a safe and welcoming place because I care about inclusion. But unfortunately, one of my fellow section members had an ableist bias against me and asked for me to be kicked out. And it happened. My fellow tuba player said that they gave me constructive criticism on my playing and marching all throughout the 2021 season, and they thought I responded with what they thought was aggression. First of all, as a person with autism, sometimes it can be hard for me to pay attention and follow directions, even in an environment where this is important, like being in a Division I marching band. Second of all, when my fellow sousaphone player thought I was being aggressive, I think I was probably making natural vocalizations and stimming that are normal for neurodivergent people like myself, even though neurotypical people may be shocked by them at first. My sousaphone section teammate then went on to say that as their displeasure with me peaked as we were changing out of our uniforms on the bus after the Pac-12 championship game in Vegas. They caught me staring at them, and that was the moment where they and our section leaders decided that they wanted to ask the Safety Advocate Committee leader to kick me off of the committee. I wish my fellow sousaphone player knew that I did not mean them any harm at all. What really happened was that I was just as frustrated as every Oregon Ducks fan in the world was after their upsetting Pac-12 championship game loss to Utah. I was also tired from a long day of rehearsing our show, performing at pep rallies, and the long, heartbreaking football game. To make matters worse, the OMB was taking a red-eye home from Vegas to Eugene, meaning my day was far from over. When neurodivergent people like me are that tired and still have long hours ahead of them, we often see ourselves stare into space without even realizing it. So I did not even have any idea I inadvertently stared at my fellow sousaphone section member and made them feel uncomfortable. I would have been eager to just tell my sousaphone section teammate on the spot that I did not mean any harm at all, and those antics they caught me doing were just natural ways in which I act as a neurodivergent person.
Luckily, however, the 2022 season was a little bit better. The members who stuck around in the sousaphone section showed to me that they've learned from having me in their section and how to accept me for who I am. And a lot of the freshmen and people who transferred from other instruments showed that they already had that in them. I felt a little bit more included.
In this portion, me, Sarah, and Bryce each stated what we believed directors and student leaders should know about having a person with a disability in their band program.
Don't expect people with disabilities to like go up and talk to people. Be the person who goes up and talks to people yourself. Like that way you'd feel a lot more included. And you'll probably have an even better time in the band.
I feel like especially for directors is just having an open mind, because if you're used to only dealing with people who are able-bodied or who are able-minded, who aren't neurodiverse, and that's the only thing that you're expecting to have to deal with, then when somebody does come up that's like, this is the disability that I have, can I participate? It's way too easy for them to just be like, nope, I don't want to have to deal with that, versus being someone who's going to be open-minded and be like, you know what, let's figure out what we can do to make this the most accessible space for you and potentially for others that come after you.
I think just opening communication as the director is the most important, especially as I'm learning how to be a teacher and going through this master's program, to expect, regardless of, especially if you're looking at high school and middle school and when we're dealing with actual children, to expect a child and then an adult to understand what's happening, but then also understand what they could do is very difficult when you're entering something new. I don't think I figured out how to be blind until I was like 22. So there's the aspect of we don't really know what our options are. And so opening that communication line is, I think, the most important thing. And having that communication be open the entire time, because it's not just one conversation. It's, hey, we've been in this for a couple of weeks. Do you think that you want to change anything or work on this? Is there anything that I could do differently? Is just an important and valuable communication, because odds are there's something missing, and communication can prevent or help a lot of things happening. I know that I had wished that communication had been opened with me at all when I was in K through 12 music education. That would have made me more inclined to do a lot more things, and would have made me potentially be a stronger musician, but also not give up on education so quickly when I was thinking about college, and had not chosen to do marching band because I determined that it was something I couldn't do, when in reality, if someone had just said something to me in high school, I don't think I would have had that same mindset. So constant communication, and every year communication.
Okay, so Sarah, Bryce, it's been a pleasure to learn about our experiences together. I would also like to thank all of our viewers for tuning in and learning more about how ableism shapes our experiences as members of Division I bands. Special thanks to Loyola Marymount University's Professor Catherine Prez and the Coelho Law Fellowship for making this panel possible. The link to learn more about the Coelho Law Fellowship, as well as the link to donate to Sarah, to give Sarah a new wheelchair, and her fellow Tar Heel, Laura, a power assist, are in the description below. Our emails, if you want to ask any of us questions, are also down in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching.